morning, everyone.
Good morning, President Kim.
We're getting midway through February here. It's usually the biggest. It's funny enough, even though it's the shortest month of the year, it's usually the busiest month for me. Traditionally, it's been the month of most of my family's birthdays. All right, so I just wanted to acknowledge that Innisfil is situated on treaty land and is steeped in rich Indigenous history. The Rotary Club of Innisfil also acknowledges that this land is the traditional territories of the First Peoples of Turtle Island, and is steeped. It is shared between the Anishinaabe peoples of Valsalay First Nation, Chippewas of Rama First Nation, and Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation, and we thank them for generations of stewardship. This meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people, and as settlers, we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. The Rotary Club of Innisfil acknowledges the forced sacrifices that are the foundation of Canadian society today. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit. We'll rise for the singing of both cantos. Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Our Sergeant at Arms, Al.
Good morning,
You have for us
President Kim.
today.
Good morning, fellow Rotarians. Lovely morning. Just a couple of things. First of all, Steve, welcome this morning. Just have a seat for just a few minutes, okay?
Certainly, sir.
We'll get you up here, Steve. You want to be properly introduced. Thanks for coming. Okay, renaming the South Innisfil Arena. It was renamed to the Morgan Russell Memorial Arena and Community Center on Sunday. And that's in memory, and that will be in memory of one of the officers that was killed just recently in Innisfil. And then they're also going to be doing something for the other officer in Bradford. But Eleanor and Barb, you were there. Eleanor, where's that?
Right.
Eleanor, what did you think of that?
Well, that's wonderful. It was emotional.
It was.
Every time I'm here with the two officers, I get emotional.
Yeah. It was a great turnout.
Mhm.
It was standing room only. And I understand you've been in that arena quite a few times over the years, right?
Over the years, yes. I lived there at one time.
Oh, did you?
Right
Yes.
in the arena?
So, and Barbara, comment on that?
Well, I thought it was a very wonderful thing the town did. I thought it was appropriate because he played hockey there, and they brought the banner out from the year that they won the championship there and hung the banner that hangs in the rafters. But they gave it to his family and his two lovely young women that were there, his daughters and his wife. I don't know how you get strong enough to do that, but I think it was a fitting memorial, and I'm just sorry we had to do it.
Yes.
So when Russell was 10 years old, he was in a tournament in that arena, and his team won. They won the tournament. He was 10 years old. So you're right, they presented the banner from 1977 and one of the hockey jerseys with his name on it to his wife and the two daughters. And I thought his wife and the two daughters looked very strong. What a lovely
Beautiful
family. It's just beautiful. But anyway,
I don't want to do that again.
no, that's for sure.
The other officer, they named a park after the city where he's from.
In Brandon.
Right, that's right.
Brandon.
Okay, And the good news, as far as Ann Smith is concerned, welcome back, Ann, on your world travels. But the good news for Ann is that they reversed the decision for the staff member here at the library took after the seniors.
Seniors, yes.
And you want to explain that to
Well,
someone?
it's thanks to, originally when the budget considerations were going on, we had a position for a full-time librarian to deal with seniors issues. One of our councillors actually put a motion to take it out of the budget into 2025, so we would have to negotiate again. And there was a lot of bit of an uproar on behalf of the board on that decision, and thanks to Jennifer Richardson, they actually reconsidered and brought it partially back into 2024, because we all know that our seniors is a growing population in Innisfil. We know the library is the hub of our community.
That's right.
And everybody relies on the library, so it's really important that we're able to help people. So,
And it was a wonderful presentation by, she's not a counselor anymore, but Donna or Sandy.
Donna or Sally spoke on,
Council,
yeah,
and did a wonderful prepared
Yeah.
speech on this. So I'm really pleased to see
I
that.
was watching from Cuba on YouTube live, jumping up and down.
So you can do things in the community, just because it comes out of the town hall and the council, sometimes maybe these things have to go back to the way they were. So that was great, that was great news.
Can I just add something? No one really speaks up all that much for the library. And libraries so busy with their mostly brand stuff, they're not really good at marketing. But they're in the midst of doing a study now to figure out how many, for every dollar spent on the library, how many exact dollars in Innisfil it returns in value. Most libraries across Ontario are somewhere between 4 to 6. So for every tax dollar that goes into the library, they deliver the equivalent of $4 to $6 worth of social services, support, halo effect type of services. We just forget about that. And the problem is, everyone loves the library when they have new kids, when they're struggling as new parents, when they have young kids, and then again as we get older. It's that in between gap that pay a bunch of taxes that would rather see salt, a little extra dip in the salt than an extra person, and it's really a loss. Communities that don't have real strong libraries plummet. So
It's fair to say that I don't know anybody in Israel that doesn't think that this is a wonderful building.
there's lots.
Oh, I mean,
Otherwise, we
what's the
wouldn't have that
slogan now? Better libraries, better world. So,
Good morning,
good morning.
our wonderful reporter here to see us this morning, and thanks for coming, nice to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, all right. And I just wanted to close on, so yesterday was Valentine's, and I met my wife at a Valentine's dance, and I walked her home, and
Only a couple of years now.
50, what did you say?
Only a couple of years.
56 years later, yesterday we had our 56th Valentine's together. So, I know a lot of young people today, you see it happen so much, I don't know, marriages, they don't seem to last as long today for young people. It's so easy just to say that this is over. So in 56 years, yeah, we've had our moments, and yeah, Susan had to put up with an awful lot. But at 56 years, so just want to close on that note. And Tim, that's all for me this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Does anyone know if Taya got engaged?
Not yet. I did get an update, a report that her ring will be ready on Saturday. And I think it's also her birthday, so she's really high hopes.
Yeah, I was wondering, since she wasn't here, I was wondering if anybody checked the jails to see if she.
She is at the Kempenfeld meeting this morning with some guests that she has. So I was just wondering, I didn't want to ask yesterday when I was talking to her.
She was screaming.
And did you want to introduce?
Yes,
our
I
guests?
would. Okay, so I would like to introduce Steven Topham from Wounded Warriors Canada. As an accomplished athlete, coach, and passionate Canadian, Steve has completed several cycling events around the world, including the inaugural Tour d'Afrique, achieving Guinness Book of World Records recognition for riding 11,000 kilometers across Africa. Wow. 2015, Steve participated in the WWC's Battlefield Bike Ride, which retraced Canadian contributions in liberating the Netherlands and honoured those who served. During the ride, he realised that many of those participating were raising much needed funds to support the important programmes they themselves would benefit from. Recognising there was more he could do to support Canada's heroes, Steve joined the Wounded Warriors Canada in 2016 as ride director for the Highway of Heroes fundraising ride, and transitioned to become National Partnerships Director in 2017. In this role, Steve is responsible to managing community and corporate relations and is excited for the opportunity to make a difference by bringing attention to the unique needs of our veteran and first responder communities. So, Steve, welcome.
I actually have some water, but I think I can manage 20 minutes. We'll see what we can do. Things might change then.
Why do you have 2 hours? Come on.
Well, again, as I've already stated earlier, I could go on ad nauseum, but I'm going to try and save you the strain of it all. So thank you, Anne, for the introduction. And I'd really like to thank you all for having me here this morning. And it's my privilege to represent Wounded Warriors Canada and also act as the National Partnerships Director. So what I would like to do this morning is just provide a little bit of background on who we are as an organization, because really we could have a 3-day conference if you let me go on as to exactly how and what we do. So really, I'd like to start by saying that really as an organization, we're a 10-year overnight success. And what I mean by that is that this is the 10th year that the organization has been in existence in this entity. And we're very excited for a lot of the achievements that we've been able to highlight over the last 10 years of our growth. So some of that is when we actually transitioned to become Wounded Warriors Canada, we initially were a United Way organization, in that what I mean by that is that we acted as a fund collector that then dispersed funds to programs and initiatives that we believe would provide the support for our veteran and still serving communities. And in 2015, that was when we really started making our way towards being a mental health service provider and offering those mental health programs. And that first program was introduced in 2015, and that was couples overcoming post-traumatic stress every day. And the reason that that program is so impactful is that we realize that trauma-exposed professionals, they often look to their circle for that support. And in doing so, the spouses are often subjected to the trauma, whether that be having the experience shared with them or just dealing with the impact of that trauma on their loved one. So we saw that that also impacts the spouse. So we felt that we would be able to bring together a community, and we know that when these groups come together and these professionals come together in a group, that they can share light experiences, that they benefit from that culturally sensitive program. And that is really what the COPE program was, and still is today, actually. And I'd like to expand on that a little bit, because it really speaks to how we now address trauma as an organization. And during the Invictus Games, if you remember when we held them here in Toronto, there was actually a Veterans Research Conference that took place at the same time. And this brought together, pardon me, I may need that water out. What we had was this situation where we brought all of these incredible minds together from around the world to discuss veterans research. And our couples program actually presented at that conference. And we were approached by an organization out of Israel, which is their leading trauma organization, Natal. And they invited us to go over with our clinical team and share our COPE program with them, because I'm sure, as we're all aware, Israel suffers its fair share of trauma on a daily basis. And that actually led to that first kind of round table where we've got our Canadian clinicians on one side and we've got the Israeli clinicians on the other side. And one side is obviously looking at the other saying, what can you share with us about trauma? We live it every day, we serve every one of us. So how is it? Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jim. So what we were able to find over the course of that first day of conversation is that trauma is trauma. It doesn't matter where it happens. If it happens in the field of battle, during a tour, if it happens in the bedroom down the road, or if it happens in a schoolyard, trauma is trauma and it's going to impact that individual. So that helped us realize that we were on the right track. If we were going to get recognition from an external organization, that we knew that we were on the right track. So in 2016, what we did was we transitioned to actually become first responder inclusive. And what that meant is that we needed to grow the capacity to offer the programs that we offer. And we were able to do that through building out our clinical team. So our clinical team exists right now at about 120 clinicians nationally that facilitate our programs in the regions that they reside, or they will travel to actually facilitate that program if needed. So what the inclusion of our first responder community led to was this need to find a way to break through the stigma that exists in service. No one wants to show that they can't manage, or that they want to share that maybe they're struggling. So what we have had to do with working with the first responder communities is really work with the leadership to start changing the culture of each service across the country, whether that be our fire departments, our police departments, or our paramedic emergency services. Because one of the first conversations I had with a first responder once we became inclusive, is that he said, oh, I've seen a lot of stuff in my time, but I'm not a wounded warrior. I've not seen what they've seen. And that is where sharing that idea and that messaging that trauma is trauma, and we need to address it that way. So what we've been able to do with including that first responder community is see another gap that needed to be filled. And that's what we've been able to do as an organization, that really, we don't have any federal or provincial affiliation. We started as a grassroots organization, and it's allowed us to act when things need to be acted upon. So we're able to fill gaps at a very quick rate because of the incredible clinical team that we have supporting us, that are able to design programs at a rapid rate when we see that there is a need and we're approached by an external organization to try and provide a service for that. So what that allowed us to do is slowly become a mental health service provider, because what we've been doing, and I apologize, I've been sitting behind my desk, so I really feel like my hands have got to be doing something, and the Europeans coming out at me with my hands. But what we were able to do is create these partnerships with the first responder services. And in doing so, that is chain of command, acknowledging that what we are doing as an organization, the programs that we offer, the messaging that we're sending out, will be beneficial in supporting the needs of their members. So that is really as far as that partnership goes. But what it has allowed us to do is then work with each service to become a contracted provider. So that takes a little bit of the heavy lifting off of the fundraising side of the house, because we now have these services that are funding the programs for their members. And we've been able to do that through being recognized by WSIB, and we're also working with several insurance providers to have our programs recognized, Medivie being one, as well as working with different trauma specialists across the country, Homewood Health being one of the prominent ones there. So in 2017, we really kind of rebranded from Wounded Warriors Canada, the charity, to Wounded Warriors Canada, the mental health service provider. And what that allowed us to do is really have two sides of the house. We were able to focus on the programming and work with the services in designing and implementing the programs. And it allowed the fundraising side of the house to really focus on the messaging. And that's what you see in the brochures that you have before you, is that we've got messages for both our donor and our members that are requiring the programs that we offer. So the way that we're able to do that is, again, as I mentioned, our incredible clinical team. And we as an organization have just wrapped up the 10th year of our 10-year doctoral scholarship program. So we committed $400,000 to research in the veterans mental health space, or uniform service mental health space, as we now refer to it now. And what we've been able to accomplish through funding this program is have 3 of our doctoral scholarship winners actually create programs that are driving a lot of the initiative and a lot of the resiliency right now in those that we serve. And I'll get to that right now. So what we found that we've needed to do is create more resiliency in those that serve, along with the greater family unit. And that is one thing that kind of sets us apart from many of the organizations that are out there representing a lot of these communities, is that we're not just the member, we're the family. Because we realize through the contributions of our national patron, retired General Romeo Dallaire, that the individual doesn't serve alone. You know, they may be abroad on tour and in the action, but the family also serves with that individual. So what we've been able to do is create supportive programs, whether that be trauma resiliency for the individual, spousal resiliency so that the couple can have that skill set together to be able to speak through and understand what is going on at a certain point in time. If there is some anxiety, some stress, maybe my words just aren't coming out the way I want them to. So there are these programs that we've been able to develop to create this environment within the family unit to benefit everyone. And that is really where our 3rd doctoral scholarship winner took us just prior to the pandemic. Was we had the member, we had the spouse, we had the couples programs, but there was one subset that didn't have any attention, and that were the children. And so doctoral scholarship winner Helena Hauerlich created with her twin sister, Jairus, the Wounded Warriors Kids program. And what that does is that uses sports and activities to share the impact of trauma. They learn about it. They, more importantly, take away from that weekend or that camp that they are not responsible for moods in the house when something goes sideways. If mom's having a bad day, dad yells, someone's downstairs self-isolated, they realize that they are not responsible for that. And I also would like to go and digress a little bit further and say they're empowered just like a service dog. Once they have the skill, they understand what's going on and they can redirect, distract. If mom or dad is having that anxious moment, you know, the child can go up and say, hey mom, let's go for a walk. Hey dad, did you see what I did in school today? Just anything to kind of redirect where that mind might be going at that moment in time. So this is one of the programs that I feel very passionately about because of what it does to the overall unit of the family. So as I mentioned, we expanded our scope to include that first responder community. And as we went into the pandemic, one of the challenges that we faced was, as a group residential service provider, so the way a lot of our programs are run, that are clinically facilitated, obviously lockdown really removed a lot of the opportunity that we had to provide any services. So we had to bend and shift like everyone else. And it was a challenge for us to find the right service provider, because obviously doing what we're doing when we've got a group situation and we've got the Brady Bunch screen of all the faces, and someone has shared something and it triggers someone else in the top right corner and then they lose connectivity. That's obviously something that we needed to be secure about and safe, that we would be able to offer those services appropriately, so that we didn't create more trauma in the individuals that we were trying to successfully help. And through that, the very first program that we offered was the Warrior Kids program. And that came out of the need out of Nova Scotia after that horrific incident. We had established a GoFundMe account, or just a specific fund that we dubbed, as everyone had, Nova Scotia Strong. And we had those funds designated just for that community, the first responders, the community on the ground. And what we do as an organization is we need, and everyone that works in the space needs to recognize that as soon as that incident happens, you can't rush in. It's not like rushing in and putting out a fire. You need to allow the opportunity for the adrenaline to drop, for people to be able to process what's just happened. So when we approach the respective stakeholders post-event, they came to us and said that our members don't need it right now. We're still in the process of dealing with the investigation, so we haven't dropped our level yet, but our children do need the support. So the first ever virtual program from Wounded Warriors Canada was the Warrior Kids program, and that was provided for those kids in that community. And what we've been able to do is run that successfully in continuity, if you will, or consistently over the last 2 years in support of our in-person camp. So that really kind of helped us see what we could start doing in the virtual space. So what that allowed us to do is start creating a few more informational programs that could be shown. So this is where our trauma-informed leadership starts to take hold. And this is where we're now starting to speak to, obviously, leadership of these services, because they don't have the knowledge. They've grown up, they've served. Their experience is suck it up. Keep calm, carry on. Great way to sell t-shirts, horrible way to live your life. So what we've been able to do through more informed education for leadership is start to change the culture from the top down. It's okay if a few individuals are trying to change the culture from the bottom up, but it's really a top-down language that we need to see that, you know, filters through the remainder of that service and association, so that that messaging is securely shared. And so through all of that, we've begun to realize that there are more populations that we need to speak to. And as I mentioned, leadership is one of those. And we're now developing more informed programming, as I just mentioned. And that, again, started with the Warrior Kids program, but it has also led to us creating core trauma concepts, which is something that we've offered online to anyone who works in the mental health world, to inform them of trauma and how it impacts an individual, and how they themselves can use the right language and environment to create that secure space where our veteran and first responder communities can feel safe, supported, and understood. And that is really the last piece of the puzzle for us. Is recently we've been gifted some support through NANO's survey group. And they have been able to start returning a lot of the information that we've been challenged to collect previously, because prior to becoming that mental health service provider, a lot of our programs were, again, as I earlier mentioned, third-party services that we funded. So it was really hard for us to track the overall experience and outcomes. So when we became that service provider, we owned everything in-house. So as of 2019, we owned all of our programs. And that means that we're working with partners, external partners, to bring what they are already doing successfully into what we're doing as an organization. And that has allowed us to grow that clinical team. Dr. Tim Black out on Vancouver Island is our clinical lead. And he is part of the overall research and development team that we have across the country. So one of the things that I really didn't share at the beginning is that our programs are offered to members regardless of where they reside. All of our programs can be accessed for application online. There are moments in time where we do have issues with waitlist. Our service dog program being the #1 program that we've got the greatest wait list for, because that is the program that is the most challenging to fulfill. So the way that our programs are kind of developed is we've got the individual programs, we've got programs for the couple. And through those, we've got our clinically based programs where we're together. We also have our animal assisted therapy, which is our equine therapy, and our canine assisted therapy. That program has just recently grown, our canine assisted therapy, to where we're now offering the name of this just changed, and I don't want to butcher it, so I'm going to go with what I know, and that is a facility dog. So I will share just one last great story about how we as an organization have been able to start 10 years ago, trying to get the message out, raising awareness and raising funds to support our veteran and first responder communities, and more importantly, honor the fallen and help the living, is Saanich Police Department. I don't know if you're aware of what went on Vancouver Island back in, I believe, September. Bank robbery. There was a high profile shootout that took place there. So we're gonna move back a couple months prior to that incident, and we were very blessed with an incredible footprint of support on Vancouver Island. One of our largest fundraising events is about to launch in a week and a half, and the Vancouver Island Run. Saanich Police is just outside of Victoria proper, and they came to us and wanted to take our trauma resiliency training. That is a program that's designed to provide some understanding of trauma, how it can impact, how to process, and how to move forward. Then this critical incident happens. We as an organization, we red flag all of these things. Our Twitter feed goes off. We're following all of these critical incidents because we know that there's going to be a need to action. It's just that where does that action first take place? Is it we reaching out to them to say that if they need any assistance, we're here? Or is it they as an organization reaching out to us? Because they had already had this training, they allowed the few days for the adrenaline, the process to take place, the debrief, the communications, one-on-one and in group to take place. After that, they realized through their training that they needed more, that some of the members were not dealing with the incident as well as they would like to see. So then we activated with our trauma resiliency program, which now deals with an incident. And as our director of, or our health services coordinator so eloquently puts it, I think, takes a traumatic incident that can dominate your thoughts and transitions it to a memory that you can access when you need and the time is appropriate. So we go in with our trauma resiliency program, deal with the members that have been injured and need that support. And they're now on the road, they've got the skills. We know that they're a resilient bunch. We just need to provide them with the understanding and the skills necessary to be able to manage and process and thrive. So that leads us to the next piece. They just received one of our, I'm gonna try and get this right, occupational facility service dog. I butchered it. But either way, Beacon is now this beautiful black lab that is now a member of the Saanich Police Force. And he will travel with his handler from station to station, whether that be police, fire, or paramedic service. Post-incident, be there, offer hugs, kisses, you know, just be there to nudge, to lean on. And he's also going to be in use when it comes to helping witnesses share their story and just be that calming force there. And that's the, I guess if you're not first, you're last. And in our service dog world, you know, Beacon would be considered a fail. And please, anyone listening in our service dog world, that I'm not meaning that literally. It's just that there are times where our service dog program is a very challenging program to fund. It funds itself. Everybody loves the service dogs. We get so much direct funding to our service dog program. The challenge is, and the reason why we have this average price of $15,000 to $18,000 is because we funnel a lot of dogs into the program, but not everybody's a Rhodes Scholar. And we as an organization with the certification guidelines that we have, this is a life-saving device that we're putting in the home of this individual. So we can't have even one glitch. We can't bring him back into the lab. We can't just hit him with a patch, send him out, and he's good to go. He needs to be able, they need to be able to function from the moment they leave. So usually those facility dogs are dogs that have been trained in recognizing the anxiety, but just maybe have that one missing. They love too much, maybe. You know, that could be all it is. They just love too much. And that is enough of a distraction to prevent them from being able to execute their job appropriately. So that's just the challenge that we have there. But the reason I wanted to share that story is because that is really the way that we as an organization can work within the communities to make certain that our first responders, those that are tending to our needs and our safety, keeping our communities healthy, are they themselves healthy? So I'm just going to wrap it up and allow for some questions. I know that was well over 20 minutes. So, but I hope that provided some insight.
It's fantastic. Any questions?
Steve, what about your relationship with the hierarchy of the armed forces and the Canadian government? You must have some kind of an agreement with them, or how does it work?
Okay, so we do have partnerships and from time to time receive grants. We have received funding through VAC and I'm sorry, again, I'm gonna butcher it, but I believe there was a Veterans and Family fund that was created, and we received a chunk of funding for our COPE program. Whenever we do receive that funding, though, it stays within the branch. So any funding that we usually receive from the federal government, if it's D&D related or VAC related, it stays within CAF. We have received funding provincially. Obviously, there are grants and funding opportunities provincially, so by no means have we not had those relationships. It's just that the primary source of our funding has been individual giving. And then we've got our third-party events. And then we have our corporate giving. And then that pillar that we've added on that has been crucial in allowing us to meet the capacity needs is that contract service provider.
Steve, you remember an incident a few years ago with a veteran, he was a young man, he had lost a leg and he lost an arm. And the Prime Minister was in the room and he was talking to everyone. And this young man got up and explained to the Prime Minister, this is a while ago, that he needed help, he needed more. And the Prime Minister said, we don't have any more to give. And he said to the Prime Minister, well, I've given all I can. Do you remember that incident?
I do.
That stuck in my mind. That's always stuck in my mind. At that time, was Wounded Warriors involved in that?
No, this really, we were in existence as an organization, but we don't get involved in politics, for one.
But that young man.
But we do speak and share our feelings on things, but I do not believe I was engaged with the organization at that time. I personally didn't have any experience with anyone reaching there to speak to or address that situation. I do believe that there was an uptick in those handwritten individual checks that, again, those $20 donors monthly that really have allowed us to become who we are.
That particular incident went around the world.
Mm-hmm. And it's and the next unfortunate piece was the comment about MAID and the medically assisted death for a veteran who was suffering. So that was something that we did speak on as an organization. Our executive director had some comments on that. But obviously there's a need to provide training for those in VAC or at VAC that handle these cases. And that's where some of our trauma-informed workplace training might be beneficial, because we've now got a sensitivity and understanding of how we can approach and engage with an individual who has been injured. And so that's one piece of the puzzle. Another great challenge within the veteran community, Alistair, is that that file turns over annually. The number of ministers that have been on that portfolio in the 5 years that I've been with the organization, maybe 5. I believe 1 year we had 3 different ministers of Veterans Affairs. So it's really challenging to have any real impact when the minister doesn't know the file.
So, so were you at one time, so when you're delivering like cross-disciplinary services, like, would you get help from other associated agencies like CAMH or CMHA? Like, are you still a part of United Way? United Way kind of shares.
No,
services?
United Way was the example of an organization that collected funds and then dispersed it to the community. We didn't have any association with United Way, so if I gave that impression, my apologies. It was just that example of being that collecting pot that distributed it to the community. So you don't have access to that. But as far as CAMH, we've engaged in best practices and communications. You know, the one organization that we have partnered with is Sunnybrook and their trauma team. And so we're working with them to provide that trauma-informed workplace training for their entire staff. Because again, those frontline trauma or frontline medical personnel, we haven't even started talking about them yet. This is just those uniformed men and women. And we do share knowledge and programming with corrections as well. As Canadian Border Services, search and rescue Coast Guard, so that uniform umbrella, that uniform service umbrella is really who we reach. We've partnered again recently with Homewood Health, which is a trauma specialist and leading trauma organization. They've been around since before the First World War. We're grateful to have those relationships, but nothing where we're directly engaged to support any of the initiatives they have or we have.
Or they can't, they're not supporting you, they're not providing mental health expertise, or you know.
No,
Free answers.
we don't have any contact with them from a program side of things. That's where our clinical team is developed and delivers our programs.
Steve,
Yes, ma'am.
you said that you go out to police forces and stuff like that and do training. So in the military, because I don't know if anybody else is guilty of this, but I've always seen our military or was raised as a kid, they're peacekeepers, they're not. So when they started that program, Wounded Warriors, I kept thinking, I don't know, it's stupidity. I kept thinking, Wounded Warriors, why are they wounded? They don't go into war. But I know, and that's an awful way to think, because I've never been there. We've lived in a peaceful country where we've never, you know, I've never seen somebody pull out a gun and start shooting. I'd probably die of a heart attack if I did. But that's the immediate mindset. We push that off and say, oh, that's America. Like half the time I'm afraid to go into the US on my motorcycle because I think somebody's going to shoot me. Isn't that stupid? But anyway, because that's what you see on TV. But so in the military, when they do their basic training, do you guys have any involvement there on like going
in
into
providing some kind
some
of
type of,
no, not at the current moment.
is that a place you
But
guys like to
speaking,
go?
they do have their programs, like the military has their road to mental readiness. They do have programs in-house that they provide. They're just not
Or is
our
it better to be
programs.
out of house because,
From our perspective,
yeah,
again,
because I think there's
because
such a mental
because we
stigma
can shift.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that we can shift quickly is one of the programs that I didn't mention in our that attends to our spouses is our Surviving Spouses program. We had a group of women reach out to us where there was a need. One of them was a spouse that lost someone during unfortunately, I get my Nova Scotia shooting incidents mixed up, but it wasn't the most recent, it was the previous RCMP incident. And that was a world that they came to us and said, look, we're struggling. We're getting our individual help, but there's nothing that really speaks to what we are experiencing. So we got the team together, they've been working on something. Those individuals brought their knowledge and we were able to create the Surviving Spouses program. So being out of the military allows us, and this is spoken, like this was shared by someone who was in the military, saying that one of the benefits that we offer is that we don't need to check off every box. You come in, if you need the assistance, we're going to get you there. It's not, we're going to work through our waiting list and get to you.
well, sometimes they don't even do that. I worked with a gentleman on Barrie Transit where when he was in, I think it was Rwanda or something. Anyway, sorry, I'm gonna cry. They gave him a dishonorable discharge. That was their answer to his issue.
Well, and in speaking to that, and I'm sorry, your name?
Marlene.
Marlene. In speaking to that, you know, the concept of veteran. I mean, yeah, we maybe haven't been in a war per se, but I've had the experience and honor of being in a place that we were peacekeeping, yet there was no peace to keep. So one of our fundraising events is the Battlefield Bike Ride, and we go and we retrace boots on the ground, which is part of the bio, and we went to Bosnia and Croatia. And for the first time, we had individuals that served in that conflict on the ride with us. Many of them were 20-something-year-old reservists that were, pardon me, in the words of one of them, in the shit. there was an armed conflict. The Croatian forces were literally shooting and bombing the Canadian forces. So, and that's a situation where the reservists, I learned this later, reservists, they're not permanent full-time, so they don't have a base to go back to. When you return from deployment, you go home. So there's not the support of the unit anymore, and now you're having to process what you just witnessed in that conflict zone. And so that is a challenge. But also any of these traumatic incidents could happen. Again, it could happen during, I mean, how many incidents have we heard of where there's been a loss of life to friendly fire? I mean, they could just be exercises where a tank rolls. We've heard of it. Tank rolls and someone, we lose one of our soldiers. Unfortunate incident, but these things happen. And again, that trauma doesn't have to happen there. That trauma could happen in a barrack. It could be any
Well,
situation.
I mean, he even says there was no fighting or anything. They were there to uncover mass graves, but he had kids at home.
Yeah, and again, it's even within our first responder community, it may not be, or in any community, it may not be that one incident. You know, that's sometimes the thing. I've been able to deal with this for so long. Why did this one thing bother me? It's not the one feather, it's the 1 ton of feathers that you've accumulated over a 10 or 15-year career. And with that, I'm going to leave it to the next question.
Yeah, I was going to say, Stephen, thank you so much for that. We could talk to you all day.
Agree.
I know our media person, Amber, would like to chat to you further, you know, as we go on. So thank you so much for
Thank you all.
Warriors.ca is
Yes.
for more information, so.
And I'm going to throw this in there as well. rideformentalhealth.ca. It's really my number one focus right now is we've got our National Ride for Mental Health that happens on August 19th. It's a ride your own route. We've designed it to really mirror what I believe is the #1 fundraising initiative in the world, which is the Terry Fox Run, which allows the community to become more involved in spreading that message and owning what they're doing. And I think that the Ride for Mental Health in every community would be something that we should all kind of strive for and be proud of when we have that day. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
5 minutes left in the meeting, so just go over some, does anybody have anything for, this is no membership updates, Debbie or Katie?
Yeah, there's,
Yes?
yeah, for membership, I just wanted to say that the mentorship and mentoring program is up and running. So I mean, with mentors that have come forward, and we're getting that program up and running. So new members will be up and running soon.
Awesome, thank you. Also a reminder for our donations for February, we're doing the Simcoe Family Connections, so bringing in gift cards for places like Walmart, any other grocery stores would certainly be of huge assistance. Anything for old business?
I'd like to acknowledge that we got another donation from the Legion for beer.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Joanne.
I did.
Fantastic. Excellent. All right, so new business. So we received an invitation from the Lions Club to join them at their community brunch on Sunday, the 26th. So it's 2 weeks' time. I think Joanne was mentioning there's 5 of us so far that haven't been.
4 people. So
4 people so far. So we can do up to 10. So if anybody else would like to go help represent the club, let me know. Or just contact Joanne directly. I believe she can send an email out. Okay, I have a couple quick district updates, and plus Janet has something for the quarter, which is connected.
Oh, I have one more thing, sorry.
Yes, please.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody is aware that Tuesday is our social, and I'm really looking forward to it, the 21st, at the Moon Cafe, just up the road. We would like it to be from 6 to 8 p.m. They are opening it just for us, so I do not want to have like 5 people there. We'd like to have minimum.
Well, it depends on what the 5 people are.
Yeah, the 5 people are gonna like drink and eat, then yeah, let's try to eat.
Have you had a
Sorry about
response?
that. Sorry about that,
Can
Tim.
I ask a question? So Denny, have you had a response? You don't have many people that are planning on coming?
Nope,
I'm going.
I have no idea.
Did you want an RSVP?
No, I don't require an RSVP, I
No,
just
but it would
don't
be
want
nice, it'd be nice to
5
know.
people there.
Yeah, so let's, how many people here today are?
If everybody here, see, I knew everybody here would come, so at least we have like.
It'd be nice,
So, yeah, did you have anything, Ellen?
No,
Oh, sorry, okay.
no, something was
Okay.
in my brain.
All right, yeah, quickly before, so there's a Rotary inclusive pin that is being offered from the district. Looking for orders per person, so looking for $10, so want to place an order from the club. I'll send it information about what it looks like to everybody, but I do have a picture here of it, if anybody's wanting to order one.
Part of that's fundraising, right, President? Part of it is
$5, the minutes are
Yeah.
$5, the other part goes towards the inclusive.
yeah, just so you know, it's not.
The,
Yes. So, yeah, we would we could potentially connect to one of the Innisfil Pride or one of the those two to help them, so, but yeah, I just received that one. It was just, there was a time constraint, that's why I just wanted to bring it forward for that.
We discussed it on the weekend at the district conference.
Excellent, okay, fantastic. Next, oh yeah, there's for international, there's the Peace Fellowship candidates. They're looking for nominations for that. Now, this is a very interesting program that you can't actually nominate a Rotarian or a Rotaract or anybody affiliated with such. This is for if you know somebody who's going to post-secondary education, or just somebody you see as a champion in the community you really think would benefit from this particular being part of this program. You can nominate them and they actually can get a scholarship that doesn't go towards a doctorate, but can help them with becoming a Rotary Peace Fellow. So it's a very interesting program. There is information, I believe it came out in an email recently. I'm not sure who gets them, but I can certainly send out more details on that one.
Is that something that Dorothy reads to us, should post on TV?
I have a question, Jim.
Yes,
So,
Al.
Denny, I saw the emails about the run at Friday Harbor, so is Friday Harbor going to host it?
I have a meeting this Friday, and then I will let all the everybody know what's going on, so.
So we don't have a date yet.
We don't have.
And we haven't
The meeting is
officially,
this Friday.
yeah, we haven't officially sanctioned that, Alex.
Yeah.
It's something that was just for the board members right now. We haven't decided as 100% that the club's doing it yet. So this is, Debbie was looking for approval to move forward with actually talking, because it's not worth the time doing it if we're not gonna approve it. So, Janet, you had some stuff for us.
Yeah, so this past weekend, I was up at the district team training seminar, where it was with all the district governors, assistant district governors, the nominees, the like blah, blah, blah. There's a whole bunch of them in a row. But we were doing it virtually as well as in person. And I had the honor of actually doing the logistics for it, so that everybody can come together for it. It was really kind of an interesting thing because I sat on basically the sidelines of hearing what goes on in district, what goes on with the budgets, and what goes on with the grants. Barb would be privy to this information at all times. So it was really kind of interesting. And as the incoming Rotary Learning Institute or Leadership Institute, they gave me an understanding a bit more about how district works and how we as club members fit in the whole scheme of things, you know, just getting to understand it and how edicts come down from Rotary International. However, one of our, she's the, Sandy Campbell is the district governor nominee, so she wouldn't be around until 24, 25. So she's got a couple of years yet before she comes on, but she's from Sudbury, and she's a bit of a poet laureate, so it's amazing. She does her Rotary Minute with her club,
every week, or every other week, she does a poem. She said this poem at the meeting. It's kind of interesting because it kind of runs in with what happened today. So I'm just gonna read this as your learning part. Good morning and thank you, fellow Rotarians and guests. I hate to admit it, but this morning I'm depressed. I know you expect humor at this early hour, but it's hard to feel happy when the news seems so dour. The tragic earthquake in Turkey, the brutal war in Ukraine, the senseless gun violence, it's like the world's gone insane. It's easy to feel lost when faced with such scenes, but then it arrives, the Rotarian magazine. As I skim through the stories, I begin to feel lighter. Apparently Rotarians are both lovers and fighters. We are people of action, matching clubs, matching funds, pooling resources and labor to get the job done. This international network is what sets us apart. We do good in the world by linking heads, hands, and hearts. So the next time you think what this world is coming to, take pride in your Rotary service and your faith will be renewed. So that's it.
Thank you. We have the 50-50 drop list.
Last three numbers 792.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for a great meeting. I will bring it, somebody up at the website, and I will bring it up for next meeting. Have a great day, everyone.